The morning sun painted the water gold as Jin-woo adjusted his diving mask. He had been studying marine life along Busan's coast for 3 years, but today felt different. The waves seemed quieter, almost holding their breath. Another early morning. Another empty beach, Min-ho called out from the research boat, checking their equipment. Are you sure you want to dive here today? The water looks strange. Jin-woo nodded, already pulling on his fins. Something was calling him to this particular spot. He had learned to trust his instincts after years of ocean research. The water was, indeed, unusual, clearer than normal, with an almost silvery quality that made everything beneath shimmer. He slipped beneath the surface and immediately noticed the silence. No fish, no movement, just crystal-clear water stretching down into blue-black depths. Jin-woo swam deeper, his breathing steady through the regulator. 20 meters down, 30, then 40. The ocean floor should have been visible by now, but it seemed to stretch endlessly below him. That's when he saw her. At first, Jin-woo thought it was debris, maybe a mannequin washed overboard from some cargo ship. But as he swam closer, his heart began racing. The figure looked human, but wrong somehow. Her skin caught the filtered sunlight like mother of pearl, shifting between pale white and soft blue-green. Long hair floated around her like underwater, grass moving with currents that Jin-woo couldn't feel. She lay perfectly still on a bed of white sand, arms at her sides, face turned upward toward the distant surface. Her clothes, if they were clothes, seemed to be made of the same material as her skin, flowing and organic. No bubbles escaped her lips, no movement in her chest. She looked like a statue that had been underwater for centuries. Jin-woo's radio crackled to life. "Everything okay down there? You've been quiet for 10 minutes. Min-ho," Jin-woo whispered into his microphone. "You need to see this." "See what?" "Jin-woo, your voice sounds weird. Are you getting enough air?" Jin-woo couldn't answer. The figure was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. Not human beautiful, but something else entirely, like looking at the ocean itself given form. Her features were delicate but strong, and even in apparent death, she seemed peaceful. "Jin-woo, I'm serious. Come up now, something's not right." But Jin-woo was already swimming closer. Every part of his scientific training screamed warnings. Unknown biological specimens could be dangerous. Contamination protocols existed for good reasons. He should surface immediately and call the proper authorities. Instead, he reached out his hand. The moment his gloved fingers touched her forehead, everything changed. Light exploded through her body, not harsh white light, but soft blues and greens that pulsed like a heartbeat. The glow spread from where he touched her, racing along what looked like veins beneath her translucent skin. Her hair began to move, with purpose instead of just drifting. Her chest rose and fell. Jin-woo jerked his hand back, but it was too late. Her eyes opened. They were the color of deep ocean, not just blue, but containing every shade of water Jin-woo had ever seen. Storm gray, and tropical turquoise, and the black blue of midnight depths. When she looked at him, he felt like he was falling into an endless sea. She didn't speak, but somehow Jin-woo heard her voice in his mind, soft as waves on sand. "Thank you," she said, without moving her lips. "I have been waiting so long for someone like you to find me." Above them, Min-ho's worried voice crackled through the radio, but Jin-woo barely heard it. The mysterious woman was sitting up now, moving with impossible grace underwater. Her skin continued to pulse with that inner light, and when she smiled, Jin-woo felt his world shift forever. He had no idea that this single touch would change not just his life, but the fate of every living thing on Earth. Jin-woo stared into those impossible eyes, feeling like he was drowning and breathing at the same time. The woman sat gracefully on the ocean floor, her pearl-like skin still glowing with soft pulses of light. Everything about this moment should have terrified him, but instead, he felt strangely calm. "My name is Hana," her voice whispered inside, his head clear as if she was speaking directly into his ear. Her lips didn't move, but Jin-woo could hear every word perfectly. "Do not be afraid, Jin-woo of the surface world." How did she know his name? Jin-woo tried to speak through his regulator, but only bubbles escaped. Hana smiled gently and touched her own throat, then pointed to his chest. "Think your words," she said in his mind. "I will hear them." Jinwoo concentrated, feeling foolish. Can you really hear me? Yes. Hana's mental voice carried warmth and something that might have been relief. Your kind has such beautiful thoughts, so quick, so bright, like schools of small fish darting through coral. What are you? Jinwoo thought, studying her otherworldly features. Where do you come from? Hana gestured downward, toward the depths that seemed to go on forever. From the deep places, where your people have never looked. From cities that grow like living coral in trenches so far down that your sun has never touched them. She stood with fluid grace, moving through the water as easily as walking through air. Her hair continued to flow around her like it had a life of its own. When she moved closer, Jinwoo could see that what he had thought were clothes were actually part of her skin. Scales so fine they looked like fabric, shifting colors with her emotions. For thousands of your years we have watched, Hana continued, her mental voice taking on a storytelling rhythm. We have seen your ancestors discover fire, build their first boats, take their first steps into our domain. We watched you learn, to swim, to dive, to explore the shallow edges of our world. Jinwoo's mind raced with questions, but Hana held up a delicate hand. Your people call us many names in your old stories. Mermaids, sea spirits, water demons. But we are none of these things. We are simply older. We were here when your oceans were young, when the first life crawled from our depths to your dry lands. Why are you telling me this? Jinwoo thought, glancing upward toward the distant surface where Minho was probably panicking by now. Because time grows short. Hana's expression grew serious, and the lights under her skin pulsed faster. For centuries, we lived in peace beneath your expanding civilization. We watched you grow and learn and create wonders. But we also watched you poison our shared waters, heat our ancient currents, and threaten the balance we have protected for millennia. She swam closer, and Jinwoo could see concern in her ocean-deep eyes. My people are divided. Some believe humans are a disease that will destroy everything. Others see potential in your species, creativity and adaptability that could help us face a greater threat approaching from the stars. What threat? Jinwoo's mental voice carried his growing alarm. Something that consumes living worlds, Hana replied, her lights dimming with what looked like fear. Something that turns entire planets into lifeless metal. It comes for Earth now, drawn by your radio signals and your growing technology. Jinwoo felt cold despite his wetsuit. And you're here to warn us? I was sent to find one of your kind who could bridge our peoples, Hana explained. Someone with the right frequency. Your touch awakened me from a dying sleep, Jinwoo. That means you are the one we have been searching for. Above them, Jinwoo's radio crackled with Minho's increasingly worried voice, but the words seemed to come from another world entirely. Hana extended her hand toward Jinwoo, palm up. In the center, a small section of her skin became transparent, revealing intricate patterns of light flowing beneath, like liquid circuits. What you see as my body is not flesh like yours, she explained, her mental voice gentle but urgent. It is a living suit, grown from the coral cities of my people. It allows me to survive in your shallow waters, to breathe your thin atmosphere if needed. Jinwoo stared at the flowing lights under her skin, mesmerized. They pulsed in complex rhythms like a heartbeat made of electricity and starlight. But something went wrong, Hana continued, her expression darkening. The waters near your shores have changed in recent decades. Chemicals that should not exist. Temperatures that rise too quickly. Acids that eat at living things. My biosuit began to fail 3 days ago. She touched her throat, where Jinwoo could now see faint scars in the pearl-like surface. I fell into deep sleep to preserve what life remained. Without intervention, I would have dissolved back into the sea within hours. But then you touched me and everything changed. What's so special about my touch, Jinwoo thought, looking at his own gloved hands with new confusion. Remove your glove, Hana requested. Jinwoo hesitated. Exposing skin to unknown organisms underwater went against every safety protocol he knew. But something in Hana's expression made him trust her. He pulled off his right glove, letting the cold ocean water touch his bare hand. Now place your palm against mine. The moment their skin made contact, Jinwoo gasped into his regulator. The lights under Hana's skin blazed brighter, and he could feel something like electricity flowing between them. Not painful, but warm, and alive, like touching pure energy. "Your people call it bioelectricity," Hana explained, her lights now pulsing in perfect rhythm with Jin Woo's heartbeat. "All living things generate it, but humans produce a frequency that is unique, rare, beyond measure." Jin Woo watched in amazement as the lights flowed from Hana's palm up her arm, healing the scars on her throat and bringing vibrant color back to her skin. "In all our explorations of the cosmos, we have found this frequency in only 3 species. One was destroyed by the metal devourers centuries ago. Another lives so far away that we have no contact. But humans—" Hana smiled, and her lights danced with what looked like joy. "Humans carry this gift in abundance." "What does it do exactly?" Jin Woo thought, still staring at their joined hands. "It awakens our technology, makes it grow, evolve, become more than we ever imagined possible." "Watch." Hana pressed her other hand against a section of the sandy ocean floor. Immediately, the sand began to shimmer and rise, forming into a small coral-like structure that glowed with inner light. It grew rapidly, sprouting delicate branches and flowing patterns. "Our cities, our ships, our tools, they are all alive in a way, but they sleep unless awakened by the right frequency. For thousands of years, we have been limited by our own capabilities." The coral structure she had grown now stood as tall as Jin Woo, beautiful and complex, pulsing with the same rhythm as their joined hands. But with human partnership, our living technology becomes something entirely new, more creative, more adaptable, more powerful than either of our species could achieve alone. Jin Woo pulled his hand back, and the coral immediately stopped growing, though it continued to glow softly. "This is why some of my people want to save humanity," Hana continued. "Not just because it is right, but because together we might actually stand a chance against what comes from the stars. And the others. They believe humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They would rather let your species face the metal devourers alone and rebuild the oceans afterward." Above them, Minho's voice crackled urgently through the radio, but Jin Woo barely heard it. He was staring at the impossible coral structure, understanding that his entire world had just changed forever. Jin Woo's surface to find his world had exploded into chaos. Minho was shouting into 3 different radios, while a helicopter circled overhead. Military boats surrounded their small research vessel, and people in dark suits were climbing aboard from speedboats. "Jin Woo!" Minho grabbed his arm as he climbed the ladder. "Where have you been? You were down there for 2 hours. I thought you were dead." Before Jin Woo could answer, a woman in a crisp black suit stepped forward. She was young but carried herself with absolute authority. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. "Dr. Jin Woo Park," she said, not asking. "I'm Agent So Young from the National Intelligence Service. We need to talk. Now." Behind her stood a tall man in military uniform, his face stern and weathered. The insignia on his collar marked him as high-ranking officer. "Commander Taejun, Korean Navy," he introduced, himself curtly. "We've been monitoring unusual electromagnetic readings from this location for the past 3 hours. Readings that match no known technology." Jin Woo glanced at the water, where Hana had remained hidden beneath the surface. How could he possibly explain what he had discovered? "I found something down there," he began carefully. "Something extraordinary." "We know," So Young interrupted. "Our satellites detected massive energy signatures from the ocean floor. Energy signatures that appeared the moment you made contact with an unknown entity." Jin Woo's heart sank. They had been watching all along. "Bring her up," Commander Taejun ordered, gesturing to his divers who were already suiting up. "Whatever it is, we need it contained and studied." "No, wait," Jin Woo stepped forward. "She's not dangerous. She's trying to help us." "She?" So Young raised an eyebrow. "So it's intelligent. Even more reason to proceed with extreme caution." That's when the water around their boats began to glow. Hana rose from the depths like a living constellation, her biosuit blazing with patterns of light that reflected off the waves. She moved with such grace that even the hardened military personnel gasped in amazement. Water seemed to bend around her as she approached the surface. "Do not fear." Her voice whispered directly into everyone's minds simultaneously. Several soldiers reached for their weapons before realizing the words came from inside their own heads. Commander Taijun stepped back, his hand moving to his sidearm. "What kind of technology is this?" "Not technology as you understand it," Hana replied, her mental voice calm despite the dozen gun barrels now pointed at her. "Living systems that your science has not yet discovered." She gestured toward Jin Wu. "May I demonstrate why your people and mine must work together?" Agent So Young nodded slowly, her analytical mind clearly fascinated despite her caution. Hana reached into the water and pulled up what looked like a piece of coral, about the size of a smartphone. She placed it in Jin Wu's hands. "Think of flight," she instructed. Jin Wu concentrated, remembering the feeling of soaring through dreams. The coral in his hands began to change, growing and reshaping itself into something that looked like a small bird made of living crystal. Its wings spread wide and it launched itself into the air, circling the boats with impossible grace. "Incredible," Commander Taijun breathed, lowering his weapon. "Now imagine protection," Hana continued. The crystal bird dove toward the water and transformed again, becoming a dome of light that surrounded their boat. When one of the soldiers fired his rifle as a test, the bullet simply stopped in mid-air, caught harmlessly in the barrier. "Your species possesses something incredibly rare," Hana explained to the stunned group. "A neural frequency that can guide our living technology in ways we never imagined. But time is running short." She pointed toward the sky, where something was wrong with the stars. They flickered and dimmed in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "The metal devourers have found your world. Ships the size of your cities, machines that consume entire planets to fuel their expansion. They will arrive within days." Agent So Young found her voice first. "How do we fight something like that?" "Alone, neither of our peoples can succeed," Hana replied. "But together with human creativity guiding our living ships, we might have a chance." The crystal dome faded, and Jin Wu felt the weight of the entire world settling on his shoulders. The ocean began to change at sunset. Jin Wu stood on the deck of the naval command ship, watching in awe as lights appeared in the water all around them. Not just here off the coast of Busan, but everywhere. Commander Taijun's radio crackled with reports from around the globe, similar phenomena appearing near every major coastline. "Sir, we are getting calls from Hawaii, California, Japan, Australia," his communications officer reported, voice shaking. "It's happening everywhere at once." The lights grew brighter, rising from depths that human submarines had never reached. What emerged from the Pacific Ocean that evening would be burned into Jin Wu's memory forever. Cities, actual cities, rising from the deepest trenches like slow-motion fireworks made of living coral and starlight. Towers that spiraled upward, in impossible curves, connected by bridges that looked grown rather than built. Gardens of luminescent seaweed swayed between structures that pulsed with the same inner light as Hana's biosuit. "My people can hide no longer," Hana said, her mental voice reaching everyone on the ship. She stood at the railing beside Jin Wu, her own lights reflecting the glow of the rising cities. "The approaching threat makes secrecy pointless." "Agent..." So Young lowered her binoculars, her face pale. "How many cities are there?" 733 major settlements, Hana replied, plus thousands of smaller outposts. "We are not few in number." As the nearest city fully breached the surface, Jin Wu could see figures moving within its coral corridors. Beings, like Hana but with subtle differences, some taller, some with different skin patterns, some whose biosuits had evolved into forms that looked more like living armor. "They're beautiful," Minho whispered beside him. But Jin Wu noticed something else. The city's lights were flickering in two distinct patterns, some areas glowing steady and warm, others pulsing with harsher, colder illumination. "Your people are divided," he observed. Hana nodded, sadness coloring her mental voice. "The Council of Depths has been debating humanity's fate for 3 of your decades. Half believe your species shows promise, creativity, adaptability, the rare neural frequency we need. The other half sees only destruction." "A way." New voice entered Jin Wu's mind, colder than Hana's, carrying the weight of vast age. "Humans poison our waters, heat our currents, and fill our depths with the corpses of creatures they have driven extinct." The voice came from a figure emerging from the coral city, taller than Hana, with biosuit patterns that looked like storm clouds. Why should we save those who destroy everything they touch? Because they can learn, Elder Nami, Hana replied, her own mental voice respectful but firm. And because together we are stronger than apart. Prove it, Elder Nami challenged. Let this human of yours demonstrate that his species deserves our protection. The water near the ship began to churn and rise, forming into a structure that took Jin Woo's breath away. It was a ship but alive, sleek like a whale but with coral growths that looked like weapons, fins that moved with purpose, and a surface that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. A scout vessel, Hana explained, grown for exploration and defense, but it has been dormant for centuries because none of my people can awaken its full potential. Elder Nami's mental voice carried skeptical challenge. If humans truly possess the frequency we need, let him pilot it. Let him prove that. Partnership with your species offers more than destruction. Jinwoo stared at the living ship floating beside them. It was beautiful and terrifying, roughly the size of a subway car but organic in every line. He could see no obvious controls, no familiar interfaces. How am I supposed to pilot something I don't understand? He asked. The same way you awakened me, Hana replied gently. With touch, with trust, with the unique patterns of your thoughts. Commander Taijun stepped forward. This could be a trap. We don't really know their intentions. If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it centuries ago, Agent So Young pointed out, though her hand rested on her sidearm. We need to take this chance. Jinwoo looked around at the faces watching him, his colleagues, the military personnel, the government agents, all of them depending on his next decision. Then he looked at the dozens of coral cities now visible on the horizon, their lights flickering between hope and judgment. What happens if I fail? He asked Hana. Then my people retreat to the deep places and leave humanity to face the metal devourers alone, she replied honestly, and both our species likely perish. Jinwoo took a deep breath and stepped toward the living ship. Jinwoo placed his bare hand on the living ship's surface and immediately felt his world explode into sensation. The vessel's biosuit wasn't just alive, it was curious, eager, almost playful. Thoughts that weren't his own flooded his mind. Memories of deep ocean currents, the taste of plankton, the feel of pressure from miles of water above. Don't fight it, Hana advised, placing her own hand beside his. Let it know you. The moment their hands touched the ship together, something incredible happened. The vessel's lights didn't just brighten, they transformed, creating patterns Jinwoo had never seen before. Colors that seemed to exist beyond the normal spectrum flowed across its surface. Impossible, Elder Nami's mental voice carried shock. The ship is evolving. Jinwoo felt the vessel's consciousness merge partially with his own. Suddenly, he understood how to move through water with perfect efficiency, how to sense electromagnetic fields, how to communicate across vast distances through bioacoustic pulses. But more than that, he felt the ship learning from him, absorbing his memories of flight, of driving cars, of the way humans move through three-dimensional space. It's like teaching and learning at the same time, he said aloud, his voice filled with wonder. The ship began to move, but not like any vessel Jinwoo had ever experienced. It flowed through the water like liquid music, responding to his thoughts before he fully formed them. When he wanted to rise, it rose. When he thought about speed, it accelerated smoothly. When he imagined turning, it curved through the water like a dolphin at play. The neural interface is complete, Hana announced to the watching crowd. Jinwoo isn't just piloting the ship, he's partnering with it. Minho leaned over the railing, his scientist's mind racing. Jinwoo, can you feel what the ship is feeling? Yes, Jinwoo replied, guiding the vessel in a graceful spiral around the command ship. It's happy. It's been waiting so long to really fly. Elder Nami's biosuit patterns shifted from stormy grey to something more like sunrise. This changes everything. The ship is performing maneuvers we never thought possible. Over the following hours, more humans were brought to the floating coral city. Minho was among the first, his hands shaking with excitement as he approached a smaller bio-vessel. Agent So Young coordinated with governments worldwide, establishing protocols for human abyssal cooperation. The frequency isn't just in Jinwu, Hana explained to the gathered crowd. Most humans carry it to some degree, some stronger than others, but nearly all can interface with our technology. Minho's first attempt at bioship piloting was less graceful than Jinwu's, but equally successful. His vessel responded to his analytical mind by growing additional sensor arrays, creating instruments that could measure things human science had never detected. "It's like the ship is customizing itself to my thoughts," Minho reported, his voice filled with scientific wonder. "It's growing tools I didn't even know I needed." By evening, 12 humans had successfully bonded with bioships. Each partnership was unique. Some ships grew more weapons, others developed enhanced communication systems, and a few evolved capabilities that surprised even the abyssal observers. "This is what we hoped for," Hana told Jinwu as they practiced advanced maneuvers together. "Human creativity combined with our biotechnology. Your species thinks in ways we never imagined." Agent So Young's voice crackled over the radio from the command ship. "We're getting reports from around the globe. Humans are successfully interfacing with abyssal technology on every continent. The partnership is working." But their celebration was short-lived. Elder Nami's urgent mental voice cut through their excitement. "The metal devourers have accelerated their approach. Our deep space sensors detect their fleet. Thousands of ships, each one larger than your biggest cities. They will arrive within 2 days." Jinwu felt his bioship's fear through their connection. The vessel had memories of the metal devourers, passed down through generations of abyssal consciousness, images of worlds stripped bare, of living ships dissolving under waves of mechanical destruction. "Can we fight them?" he asked. "Alone? No," Hana replied. "But together, with human-guided bioships, we might have a chance. Your species' unpredictability could be exactly what we need." As night fell over the ocean, Jinwu looked up at the stars and tried not to think about the mechanical swarm racing toward Earth. Instead, he focused on the warm connection with his bioship, the partnership with Hana, and the growing bond between their two species. Everything would depend on the next 48 hours. The stars began disappearing at dawn. Jinwu noticed it first from the deck of his bioship, floating alongside dozens of other human abyssal vessels in the calm Pacific waters. One by one, familiar constellations simply winked out, as if something massive was blocking their light. "It's starting," Hana whispered in his mind, her biosuit patterns shifting to deep crimson with anxiety. Through their shared connection, Jinwu felt his ship's growing terror. Ancient memories flooded through the biovessel's consciousness. Worlds turned to ash, oceans boiled away, entire civilizations consumed in moments. The metal devourers had done this countless times before. Commander Taijun's voice crackled over the radio from the command vessel. "Satellite feeds are going dark one by one. Whatever's up there, it's huge." The first glimpse of the enemy fleet made Jinwu's stomach drop. They appeared as dark shapes against the stars, geometric and angular where everything natural was curved and flowing. The lead ships were the size of small moons, their surfaces covered in mechanical spikes that seemed to pulse with hunger. "Dear God," Minho breathed over the comm from his own bioship nearby. "How many are there?" "Our sensors count over 3,000 vessels." Elder Nami's mental voice carried grim authority. "From scouts the size of your buildings to massive world-eaters, larger than your cities." Agent So Young coordinated from the floating command center, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "All conventional military forces are standing by, but based on abyssal intelligence, traditional weapons will be ineffective." She was right. The first wave of human resistance proved futile. Fighter jets launched missiles that simply disappeared into the mechanical hulls without effect. Naval cannons fired shells that were absorbed and converted into more ship mass. Even nuclear submarines couldn't scratch the invaders' adaptive armor. They consumed kinetic energy, electromagnetic radiation, even nuclear force, Hana explained, as they watched a destroyer's entire arsenal vanish into a relatively small devourer. "Scout. Everything your military throws at them only makes them stronger." But when the first mechanical probe descended toward the bioship fleet, something different happened. Jinwoo felt his vessel's response before he consciously decided to act. The bioship didn't try to destroy the probe. Instead, it confused it. Patterns of light flowed across the living hull in sequences that seemed random but weren't. The probe's sensors, designed to analyze and adapt to predictable weapons, couldn't process the chaotic creativity flowing from human-guided biotechnology. "It's working," Jinwoo called out, as the probe spun helplessly, its targeting systems overwhelmed by patterns that made no logical sense. "The ship is thinking like a human, not like a machine." Minho's bio-vessel joined the attack, but his analytical mind guided it differently. Instead of chaos, his ship created false energy, signatures that made the probe think it was attacking multiple targets when none actually existed. "Each human partnership creates unique responses," Hana observed with growing excitement. "The Devourers can't adapt because they can't predict human creativity." The real test came when a full-size Devourer ship, roughly the size of a city block, descended to investigate the strange readings from the biofleet. Its hull bristled with weapons that had consumed entire star systems. "Formation attack," Jinwoo called out, feeling his bioship's eagerness through their neural link. "Everyone think differently. Don't coordinate, just be human." What followed was the most beautiful and chaotic battle Jinwoo had ever witnessed. 12 human-guided bioships attacked the massive Devourer in 12 completely different ways. Some used impossible flight patterns that defied physics, others created illusions that confused the machine's sensors, and a few simply did things that made no sense at all. Jinwoo's ship suddenly grew what looked like wings made of pure light, and began spinning in spirals that should have been nauseating, but somehow felt perfectly natural. Minho's vessel split itself into multiple copies, each one slightly different, creating a puzzle the Devourer's logical processors couldn't solve. The massive enemy ship, designed to adapt to any predictable threat, simply couldn't cope with the beautiful insanity of human creativity unleashed through living technology. Its weapons fired randomly, its shields fluctuated wildly, and finally its hull began to crack. "Impossible," Commander Taejun's voice carried disbelief. "They're actually damaging it." "Not damaging," Hana corrected, her mental voice filled with wonder. "Confusing it to death. Their mechanical minds can't handle true chaos." The Devourer ship collapsed inward on itself, its logical systems finally overloaded by paradoxes they couldn't resolve. But as Jinwoo celebrated their first victory, he looked up at the thousands of dark shapes still blotting out the stars. They had won a single battle, but the war was just beginning. The battle for Earth began at 3 in the morning, when the Devourer fleet darkened half the sky. Jinwoo floated in his bioship a mile above the Pacific Ocean, part of a formation that would have been impossible to explain just days earlier. Human pilots in living vessels moved alongside abyssal warriors in their traditional coral ships, while below them, entire cities had risen from the deep to join the fight. "Remember," Jinwoo broadcast to the mixed fleet, "don't think like soldiers. Think like humans." The first wave of metal Devourers descended like a mechanical storm. Ships the size of skyscrapers moved in perfect formation, their weapons charging with cold precision. Everything about them screamed order, logic, predictable patterns. Jinwoo smiled and dove his bioship straight down toward the ocean. "What are you doing?" Commander Taejun's voice crackled with panic from the command vessel. "You're heading away from the enemy." "Trust me," Jinwoo replied, feeling his bioship's excitement through their neural connection. The vessel had learned to love his crazy ideas. At the last second before hitting the water, Jinwoo pulled up and skimmed the surface. But instead of rising again, he did something no pilot had ever attempted. He flew underwater. His bioship adapted instantly, growing gill-like structures and fins, becoming part submarine, part aircraft, part something entirely new. The Devourer ships following him stopped in confusion. Their sensors couldn't lock onto a target that kept changing its fundamental nature. When Jinwoo suddenly burst from the ocean, directly beneath them, his ship had transformed again, sprouting energy weapons that looked like angry flowers. "Impossible," came the mechanical voice of the lead Devourer, translated through abyssal technology. "Target classification, unknown. Adaptation protocols, failing." That's the point, Jin Woo laughed, spinning his ship in a corkscrew pattern that made the enemy's targeting computers crash. Across the battlefield, other human pilots were creating their own brand of beautiful chaos. Minho had discovered that his bioship could split into dozens of tiny pieces, each one thinking independently but somehow coordinated. The Devourer's weapons couldn't decide which piece to shoot at first. A pilot named Kyung Min from Seoul had learned to fly her ship backwards while spinning, creating flight patterns that violated every law of aerodynamics. Her biovessel loved the challenge, growing new control surfaces that shouldn't have worked but did. The humans are using emotions to pilot, Elder Nami observed with amazement. Joy, fear, anger, love, they're turning feelings into tactical advantages. Agent So Young coordinated from the floating command center, but even she was improvising. All units, the enemy is trying to establish a pattern. Whatever you're doing, change it. Be unpredictable. The tide of battle turned when Jin Woo made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed in any conventional military. He flew his bioship directly into the weapons array of a massive Devourer vessel. Jin Woo, no! Hana's mental voice screamed with terror. But Jin Woo wasn't committing suicide. At the moment of impact, he thought about healing instead of destruction. His bioship responded by trying to repair the mechanical vessel, its living systems attempting to convert metal into organic matter. The Devourer ship convulsed as biological systems began growing throughout its hull. Vines of living coral spread through its weapons, flowers bloomed from its armor plating, and its cold logic centers became gardens of bioluminescent thought. Converting enemy assets, Jin Woo reported calmly, as the transformed ship began attacking its former allies. Repeat, we can heal them into helping us. Within minutes, human pilots across the fleet were attempting the same impossible tactic. They flew their bioships not as weapons of war, but as instruments of transformation. Devourer vessels found themselves changing from the inside out, their mechanical perfection becoming something beautifully chaotic. The enemy fleet's formation began to collapse as converted ships turned on their former companions. The Devourers, Central Intelligence couldn't compute betrayal by their own vessels, especially betrayal caused by the concept of healing. This is unprecedented, the mechanical voice broadcast across all frequencies. Retreat protocols initiated. Classification impossible enemy. But Jin Woo wasn't finished. As the Devourer fleet began to withdraw, he made one final, completely insane decision. He opened his bioship's communications array and broadcast a single human emotion across the entire enemy fleet. Forgiveness. The effect was immediate and devastating to the mechanical minds. Forgiveness was a concept that required illogical behavior, accepting harm without seeking revenge, choosing cooperation over conquest. The Devourer ships simply couldn't process it. One by one, across the entire fleet, mechanical vessels began shutting down as their logic processors overloaded trying to understand human mercy. Victory, Elder Nami announced, her mental voice filled with wonder. The metal Devourers are retreating. They cannot fight an enemy that heals instead of harms. As the last Devourer ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, Jin Woo floated in his bioship and looked down at the transformed Earth below. The ocean glowed with risen cities, the sky filled with living vessels, and humanity had learned it was part of something much larger than itself. What happens now? He asked Hana. Now, she replied, her biosuit glowing with patterns of pure joy, we explore the universe together. 6 months after the Devourer War ended, Jin Woo woke up in a bedroom that was half underwater and half in the sky. His apartment in New Seoul floated on the surface of what used to be just ocean, but now was something entirely different. Through the transparent floor, he could see the coral towers of the abyssal district, growing deep beneath the waves. Through his ceiling window, traditional skyscrapers reached toward the clouds, connected to underwater cities by tubes of living light. Good morning, Hana's voice whispered in his mind, warm and familiar as sunlight. She emerged from the water section of their shared living space, her biosuit shimmering as it adapted from underwater breathing to surface air. Jin Woo smiled, still amazed by how natural this felt. The bond between them had grown deeper than friendship, deeper than partnership. They shared thoughts, dreams, and memories across the gap between species. When Hana was happy, Jinwoo felt warmth in his chest. When he worried about something, her biosuit patterns would shift to calming blues and greens. "Any word from the exploration teams?" he asked, pulling on the biosuit that had become as natural as clothing. Human technology and abyssal bioengineering had merged into something that was both and neither. "3 more species have requested contact," Hana replied, her excitement rippling through their mental connection. "The crystal minds of Proxima want to learn about human music. The gas cloud collective near Vega is curious about our joint cities, and something calling itself the Mechanical Redeemed is asking for help understanding forgiveness." Jinwoo laughed. The Mechanical Redeemed were former Devourer ships that had been transformed during the war, unable to return to their old fleet, but unwilling to be destroyed. They had formed their own small civilization, trying to understand concepts like mercy and cooperation. He stepped onto the transport platform outside their apartment, a living creature that looked like a manta ray made of coral and starlight. It responded to his thoughts, carrying them smoothly through the water-filled transit tubes toward the diplomatic center. The center itself was a marvel that represented everything their 2 species had achieved together. Coral towers spiraled up from the ocean floor while human-designed platforms floated above the surface. Gardens of kelp and traditional earth plants grew together in impossible harmony. Schools of fish swam through chambers filled with human artwork, while abyssal musicians created songs that could only be heard through bioacoustic translation. The morning briefing includes contact requests from 7 different star systems, Agent So Young reported as they arrived. She had adapted to the new world remarkably well, becoming Earth's first interspecies diplomatic coordinator. Also, Minho's research team wants to show you something exciting. They found Minho in his laboratory, which was half traditional, human science equipment and half-living abyssal biotech. He was grinning like a child on his birthday. "Watch this," he said, placing his hands on what looked like a small tree made of crystal and coral. "I've been working with the biotechnology, trying to understand how it grows and adapts." Under his touch, the tree creature began to change, but instead of growing randomly, it shaped itself into something specific. A perfect sculpture of the Earth, complete with continents, oceans, and even tiny clouds. But this Earth showed both human cities and abyssal settlements. A world transformed. "It's not just responding to my thoughts," Minho explained excitedly. "It's interpreting my hopes, my dreams about what our world could become. The biotechnology is evolving beyond anything the abyssal people imagined possible." Elder Nami appeared beside them, her ancient biosuit patterns showing deep satisfaction. "This is what we hoped for when we first emerged from the depths. Not just cooperation, but true synthesis. Your species brings something to biological technology that we never possessed, the ability to dream impossible things and make them real." "Speaking of impossible things," Commander Taejon's voice came over the communication system, "we're receiving a delegation from the Spiral Empire. They're requesting human mediation in a conflict with a machine civilization." Jinwoo exchanged glances with Hana. In the months since the Devourer War, word had spread across the galaxy about Earth's unique solution to the eternal conflict between biological and mechanical life. Other species were beginning to see humans as natural mediators, beings who could understand both organic creativity and logical precision. "Another diplomatic mission?" Jinwoo asked. "The biggest yet," So Young replied. "A war that's been going on for thousands of years. They specifically requested you and Hana." Jinwoo looked out at their transformed world, cities that breathed, oceans that sang, humans and abyssal people working together to create something neither species could have imagined alone. 6 months ago, he had been a simple marine biologist. Now he was helping to reshape the galaxy's understanding of what life could be. "When do we leave?" he asked. Hana's biosuit patterns shifted to the colors of adventure and joy. "The bioship is already growing," she replied. "It's excited to see new stars." As Jinwoo prepared for another impossible journey, he realized that finding Hana on that beach had been just the beginning. Humanity had found its place in the universe, not as conquerors or servants, but as the bridge between all forms of consciousness. And that was the most beautiful impossibility of all.